Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm MrTieDye, and today we're going to explore with what I call the Scrunch Design. I've also heard it called the Crumple and Random Design, but basically for me, I scrunch up the design, so I call it a scrunch. So what we're starting with here today is a white t-shirt that's been soaked in soda ash. It's been spun out so it's barely damp. And then I've turned it inside out just because that's just my personal preference for dyeing shirts. Every now and then you'll get a little bit of dye that doesn't dissolve all the way and it can leave tiny little specks. So most of the time if you turn the shirt inside out, those specks will be just on the inside of the tee. So, and then also if you're using washable markers, that's something that every now and then I've had a little line that didn't wash all the way out. So once again, that will be on the inside of the tee. So that's just my preference for folding shirts. It's also, if you're going to do any kind of centering, folding the shirt in half, it's easier if you have can see the actual seams. So I like to just kind of smooth everything out and lay it flat if I'm going to fold it in half and center. So anyways, I do have a couple videos on that, and I'll put a link to those in the description box below this video. So let's go ahead and get into the Scrunch Design. There's different ways that you can make it better. I've answered a bunch of questions for people. One of the things is how to improve your scrunch. If your scrunch is too thick or too wadded up, then you're going to end up with more white spots in there, and you're also going to have bigger spots. What I like to do for a scrunch is do smaller, tighter little folds. And for me, typically if I'm laying the shirt out flat, and like I say, we're going to do several different scrunches in different methods. So each one I'm going to scrunch it up and then dye it and open it up so you can see what the results are. So when I'm laying the shirt out flat, I like to scrunch it up and just get all of these little creases just as tight as I can, just little tiny folds in there. So I just usually will kind of work from the middle and just kind of squish everything in to the middle, and you can just kind of work your way all the way around the tee. Another method for this is you could start just down at the bottom. And that's one of the methods when I fold the t-shirt in half. I like to fold and kind of scrunch all in place. This is more of a random fold. So anyways, we'll show that here in a little bit. For now, let's just go ahead and get the rest of this scrunched up. And I just take time to kind of smooth things out and just keep working all of these little creases in. And you still want to have a little bit of height. I like to have mine be at least an inch thick. If it's too thin, when you go to tie it up, either put your rubber bands on or tie kite string, you might have something that folds up on you. So you need to still have it thick enough so that you can put your bands on without it folding up on you. And that's just something that as you practice it, you're going to figure out just how thick you need it. And sometimes you can kind of scrunch a bunch of it in and then go back and just smooth those creases out. And sometimes I'll go ahead and start tying it, and then afterwards I use my cuticle pusher and I can kind of press and adjust some of these creases. So you don't have to get it all perfect right here. This here is probably good enough for me right now. And as I start tying this, I'm going to start squishing this in tighter together as I go. And I do have a video on using how I use kite string and sinew, so you can look that up if you want to see more detail, but I'll try to explain kind of what I'm doing. So first off, when I'm tying this up with kite string, I like to lay a little bit of a tail across there, and then over on the edge where I'm going to slide this under, I'm going to press this down either with my finger or with my thumb, and that way I can stretch this part out here and slide it right under the table, right under the t-shirt there. And then I'll usually bring that around, and then I slowly work this together with my hands, and then I pull the slack tight out of there. And usually you got to get a couple of those wrapped under there for it to stay. So once again, I'm going to hold this down with my thumb, And if you hold the other edge out here down with your thumb, then the string is flat against the table and it slides under much easier. So once I get that in place over there, I don't just pull it. Like I say, I'm going to hold this down with my hand, kind of scrunch it together, and then I pull that slack out. So each time you see me wrap and slide under, I'm always holding one edge down with this thumb, and this edge I'm holding down with this thumb, and that allows me to slide right under. That's what makes it look so easy. And once you know the little tricks, then it is easy. You just have to practice them to get better at it. And then from here, I just keep working my way around the shirt and getting all these big poofy areas pulled in and tightened up. And this is the point where you can then get in here and work some of these creases a little better, get them a little bit tighter together. Make sure there's no the creases that are laying flopped over top. If you get a piece that's flopped over top like this, and you put dye on, sometimes it won't soak all the way through and you'll have this big white spot underneath here. So I always try to make sure that I have all my creases laying flat or next to each other, not overlapping. Okay, so there's the first one, and like I say, I can then use my cuticle pusher to kind of adjust some of these creases here. So it's just a matter of kind of poking things down. If one looks like it's laying over something, then I can kind of poke it down in there. And the reason I like the cuticle pusher is because it has a nice smooth edge on here. So you don't have to have one of these, but just something with a smooth edge. I've seen people use chopsticks. Just something like that is what's going to work great for manipulating the fabric just a little bit without tearing a hole in it. Alright, okay, this first one I'm going to do just a one color dye on this. I've had a lot of people asking about one color designs, and I think just about any of them can be done with one color. So anyway, this is what I'm going to do for this one. I'm going to dye the top of this with emerald green, and we're going to leave the bottom white. So, and depending on how thick you put this on as to how much white. So I'm kind of giving this a good saturation here from the top. I want some white in it, but I don't want it to be a lot of white. But that's your own personal choice. You can put however many layers. You can pick it up and peek at the bottom. You know, once you got the layer dye on, you can kind of look at the bottom. Or you can open up the creases and just peek in there and see if you want to add more color or not. But I'm going to dye this one, and then I'm going to batch it with the colored side down. Okay, so like I say, I obviously had a little bit of speckles of blue dye on here someplace, but I can see just a little bit of the green coming through in just a couple of the places, but mostly it's white on the bottom. I'm going to add just a little bit more because I want mine to be a little bit more saturated. But if you want a lot of white, you could stop right here. I'm thinking I got this saturated well enough. Yeah, I can see as I opened up these creases down here. Let's see if I can show that. So I can see, oh, in fact, this might be, yeah. So you can see the green is just right there. So I'm going to go ahead and batch this one with the white side up. So I'm going to leave this sit for 48 hours, and then you'll see the results here in about 2 seconds. Okay, good morning. So it's time to start rinsing these t-shirts out. So this is the one that we did the single color on and left the rest of it white. So I dyed the top all one color, and then the bottom I left it white. I batched the color side down, and you can see I saturated it pretty good, so that color then soaked up in here. But this isn't always a good representation. A lot of this here might still wash out to white when I'm all the way done. So I never fully judge a tie-dye until it's been completely washed and dried, because that's when you're going to get your true colors. But this here at least allows you to see that that color does soak up. If you want more white and less of this soaking up, then I would apply just one single coat on the other side. I applied 2 or 3 coats because I wanted a lot of saturation. Anyway, let's open this up a little bit. So there we have that, and it looks pretty much the same on the front and the back. One side, the back looks like it has just a little bit more white to it, but overall that's a nice looking scrunch. So let's get that washed. Okay, this one we're going to dye with one color also, but we're going to do it just a little bit differently. But I'm going to tie it up the same way. So we're just going to go into super speed mode. Alright, let's get some gloves on and put some color on that. Okay, we're going to do another single color tie-dye, except for in this case we're going to add some extra soda ash water to it. Basically adding more liquid without diluting the soda ash. Because like if you added just plain water, then you would dilute the soda ash, which would then affect the colors. But by adding soda ash water to this, I can kind of dilute the dye a little bit without diluting the soda ash, so we're still going to have a proper dye reaction. Anyways, so basically what I want to do, you can add the soda ash in different fashions. One method would be to just not spin out the excess. If you just soak this and squeeze it out by hand and tied it up, then you would have a lot of extra liquid left in here. But since I have spun this out and it's just barely damp, I'm going to go ahead and add some extra liquid back into this. So you can just go ahead and just squirt some on top, and then when you add your dye on there, the dye goes in and it kind of dilutes a little bit, so you're going to get different shades of the same color of dye. So that's one method of doing it. The other method is to put the dye on and then add soda ash on top. And what that will do is the same thing. It's going to dilute it, but it's also going to kind of lighten the tops of the creases here, where that's where it's going to dilute the most. So it's just going to give a little bit of a different patterning there. So we're just going to kind of play with this, but like I say, there's lots of ways of doing one color. This here is just going to be basically 2 tones or 3 or 4 tones of the same color of dye within this t-shirt, instead of having it be just blue and white. It's going to be blue, maybe a little bit of white, but it's also going to be lighter shades of blue in there. So as I go over top of this, I can see it diluting some of that out right here. So now I'm going to dye the bottom side the same way. Actually, let's add just a little squirt of soda ash on top. And this dye that I'm using is Bluebird from Dharma. And this one does make for a little bit of a sloppier dye just because you have excess liquid. So sometimes it's nice to put a rag down, a clean dry rag underneath, just to kind of soak up some of that excess liquid. So once again, I'm going to add soda ash now over top of this. And like I say, the t-shirt was pre-soaked in soda ash and then spun out, so it's barely damp. So this is just one more method of doing your t-shirt. And let's see, if I squirt this on just half of the t-shirt, I think you can kind of see, yeah, you can see that lightness where I squirted the soda ash on this part and not on this part. So maybe I will leave it that way. I'll do just a little bit more. And we'll just leave that and see if we can notice that in the end results there. But that's just another way of doing a single color dye, but you're doing different shades of that same color in there. So I'm going to let this batch for 48 hours and then you'll see the results in about 2 seconds. Okay, here's the single color where I did just the bluebird on it, and I also added some soda ash just to try to mix it up a little bit so that we would get some straight bluebird color, but then we'd also get some diluted. So it's going to be all blue, but it's going to be in shades of blue. So that was what I was going for. So I can see some of the detail here, and I can see some darker spots. This is, I think, going to be more apparent at the time that after I do all the washing and drying. I think we're going to get more texture in there. But for now, I think that's looking pretty good. So we're just... Okay, so this one here, we're going to fold it in half. And this one, I'm just going to fold just straight in half. I'm not going to tuck a sleeve in. I just want to line it up. So basically I got my bottom shirt tails here lined up together. And I have my shirt sleeves lined up right here. So I just line those up. And you can kind of shake it out. Fold it in half. But this one here, when I dye it, I'm going to dye the same color. So I'm going to use probably a turquoise and a darker blue, and I'm going to put both of them on the top and the bottom. The main reason for that is when you fold a t-shirt straight in half, you have the front is on both sides and the back of the t-shirt is here in the middle. So what I've done is draw this out a little bit. So when you scrunch this up, so let's figure that the blue line, the blue line equals the front of the T, and the red line is the back of the T. So when I fold this t-shirt straight in half, I got half of the t-shirt of the front of the t-shirt here. I got 2 layers of the back of the t-shirt, and then I have the other half of the front. So if I put one color on the top and a different color on the bottom, then you're going to have a difference side to side. So if I put green on the top and red on the bottom, then half of the front of the shirt is going to have more green with a tiny bit of red, and the back, the other side, is going to be green. Did I say red and green? Yes. The other half of the front of the t-shirt is going to be mostly green. Sorry, I can't talk right now. Anyway, hopefully you get my point. If you have uneven saturation side to side, then tucking one sleeve in to the other is going to do it, because what that does then is puts both halves of the front of the t-shirt together and both halves of the back of the t-shirt together. So when you put a color on the top, it's going to saturate both sides of the front evenly, and then on the bottom side you're going to have both sides of the back of the t-shirt that get saturated, saturated evenly as you're doing that. So hopefully that kind of clears up why it makes sense to dye the t-shirts or fold the t-shirt in half the way that I do. But this one here, like I say, it is possible to do a scrunch design folded in half and dyed. That's what we're going to do here. I'm going to just do a random scrunch on this one here. So once again, usually on the random, when I fold it in half, I will usually start kind of at the bottom and just kind of work my way up. And I'm still trying to put all of these little creases in here, making sure that I don't overlap pieces over top that's going to create little pockets in here. And this is the other nice thing about kite string, is once you get part of the shirt tied up, then you can go ahead and start tying it. Or, yeah, I'm not talking well this morning. Sorry about that, guys. Alright. So I can tie that up, have that held in place while I scrunch up the rest of this t-shirt now. Alright, let's get some gloves on. We'll put some color on that. Okay, now in this one here, this is the one that I folded straight in half. So I need to dye the top and the bottom in the same fashion so that I get even side-to-side saturation. So this was the one that I kind of folded just even up. So here is the middle of the tee. Here's the sleeves, the collar, the base here. So what I'm going to do is dye this in fire colors, and I'm going to do kind of in a V shape. So knowing that I scrunch pretty evenly going up here, I'm going to start from the sleeves. I'm going to come down at an angle with my yellow. And what that's going to do is put a nice yellow V-shaped scrunch on here. So when I do this, I'm going to dye the same colors in the same places on the top and the bottom. And that's because I folded it straight in half. So this way I don't have to worry quite so much about how I saturate it. If I dye it the same top and bottom, then I get the even side-to-side results. Okay, now for the top part of the t-shirt, or anyway, I'm going to dye it in orange. And the main thing for this is using colors. If you're going to put one color over top of another, which is what I'm going to do here once I dye this whole thing in the yellow and orange, then I'm going to add fuchsia over top. So I'm using colors that mix well together. I could also do 2 shades of green and dye, a light green, light green and then a dark green, flip it over, do a light green and a dark green. Same thing with blues, purples, whatever. Anything that mixes well. You could even do it with the yellow and purple. You just have to be aware that you're going to get brown from that, which brown's not a bad color. It's just another choice. But if you don't want brown, then don't mix the orange and purple or yellow and purple together. Or orange and green, that's another color. Okay, so there's the one side. Now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to dye the bottom side the same way. So I'm going to do that yellow down in the V shape. And just because I know that this here is going to be sloppier, there's going to be more dye just because of the way that I'm dyeing it. I'm going to put that on a clean dry rag here. And then I'm going to add a coat of fuchsia. So I used lemon yellow for the bottom part. Use deep orange for the top part, and now I'm using fuchsia, and I'm going to coat both sides, the whole thing. Okay, I'm going to let this sit for 48 hours, and then I'll rinse and wash it, and you'll see the results in about 2 seconds. Alright, let's open up these fire colors and see what we got. This is one that I just folded the t-shirt straight in half instead of tucking one sleeve into the other. And then I dyed the top and the bottom in the same fashion. That way, hopefully it will get nice, even side-to-side saturation. Alright. Yeah, that looks really nice. let's open it up this way. Yeah, I like that. Okay, this one here we're going to fold in half by centering it. So that's just what I call it, centering it, because you're basically getting the front and the back of the t-shirt centered. So basically what I'm doing is just tucking one sleeve in. So I have both of my sleeves here, and I will be making a better video for this. I have a couple of them up, but I still need to make one more. So I just tuck that one sleeve in. So here is that other sleeve. And then you have your bottom seam on both of these here. So I'm lining that up. And then the other thing you line up is the shoulder seam. So I don't know if you can see the light through there, but I can see that my shoulder seam is lined up. This one here is, but I need to line up this one too. So it's just a matter of just adjusting these till all of your seams line up correctly, one on top of the other, and then I can usually shake it out and lay it down. So there's my two sleeves, shoulder seams lined up. Then I can usually lay that down, and I usually will pick up the front. So this here is just the front of the tee. Give it one more shake, and then I pick up the back of the tee down here. And then you have your t-shirt folded in half, and here is the front and there's the back. So when I scrunch this up, then, like I say, in my picture here, I have both parts of the front of the t-shirt together right here, because this is the front on this crease, and these here are the back. So when I crease that up, then that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the front of the t-shirt and the back of the t-shirt. So I hope that makes sense. And like I say, that's going to give you even saturation side to side. So this one here, we're going to do a random scrunch on it. Instead of scrunching from the bottom, I'm going to kind of scrunch up this. This here is the front of the middle and the front of the back. I'm going to kind of scrunch that up in the middle here. So there's all different ways of scrunching up. You just have to find the ways that you like the best, that provide the results that you like. So on this one here, the middle part of the t-shirt is going to be kind of in the middle here. So I'm not trying to keep track of it. Sometimes I fold it up and I like to know exactly where that fold is. So we'll do one more of these after this one here, with it folded like this and dyed differently. Okay. Like I say, the more time that you spend adjusting and folding your creases here, the better your scrunches are going to turn out, and also the faster you're going to get at it. It's just a skill, and you just need some practice at it, and as you practice it, you're going to get faster, and it's just going to go much easier. The other thing I use the scrunch for is if I'm tying up a different design, like a peace sign or a heart or something, I typically will scrunch up the rest of the t-shirt. Sometimes if I will pleat it up and do something different with it, but most times after I tie a design, I scrunch the rest of the t-shirt. So if you get a nice looking scrunch going on, then the rest of the t-shirt looks nice also around the design. Okay, let's get some gloves on. We'll put some color on that. Okay, welcome back. So you may have noticed a clothing change here. I was in the editing process of this video, and for whatever reason, the clip of me dyeing the camouflage t-shirt wouldn't upload. The file was corrupted or something. So anyways, I decided to just tie up another t-shirt. I did it in a similar fashion. I tucked one sleeve in to center the T. Anyway, so this one is tied up just like the other one you guys just got through watching. And I'm going to dye this up in camouflage colors. I've had a lot of requests for that, so I decided I wanted to make that part of my scrunch video to show people what I do. The colors I like for scrunch, I have emerald green, I have a bright green that I mixed up using 3 parts lemon yellow and 1 part turquoise. And you can adjust that more yellow or more blue or turquoise depending on how limey you want it, or if you use more turquoise you'll get it into a darker green. But you can play with your bright green if you're mixing your own up. And then I have a chocolate brown, but I watered this down so that I would get a tan. I know sometimes in the past I will use a brown and a tan. Those are, like I say, your own choices. And then after I dye the whole thing, I'm going to put a light coat of black covering most of the top and the bottom, just because I like a lot of black in my camo. White is another color that sometimes I'll do in camo, which means just not saturating it completely. So if I get a little bit of white, that'll be fine in here. But what I'm going to do is just randomly apply the dyes to this. Since I did fold the t-shirt in half by tucking one sleeve in the other, that separates the front and the back of the t-shirt, so I can dye the top and the bottom differently, and I don't have to worry about the things looking off side to side. So we're just going to go for it. Just dye them up randomly. You could do this in little spots, you could do lines, you could do squigglies. However you like to dye it is going to work just fine for the camo. You might start dyeing it one way and get the results and decide you want to dye it in a different fashion. So it's one of those that's fun to kind of explore with until you get just the right look. So anyway, I'm going to start out putting my lighter 2 colors on first, which will be my bright green and my tan. Then I'm going to fill in the rest of the white with the green, the darker green, and then I'm going to do black over top of the whole thing. So we're going to go into super speed mode here as I get this dyed up. So when I flip this over to the other side, I can see some of my colors are coming through to this other side. So that's kind of a good thing, showing that I have decent saturation going on. I'm not trying to get all of the colors filled through. I know I only have 4 layers of fabric and it's not tied that tightly. So I'm pretty confident that the colors will soak through okay. I'm going to dye this side differently than the other side, which is going to give me more patterning. So in the places where I put the bright green, I'm going to put different colors. So I'm still going to start with my bright green, but I'm going to look for places where I have my green, or my dark green and my brown, and that's where I'm going to place my bright green this time, just to give me a little bit more patterning. If you place it on the same side, then you're going to get more of a solid patterning. And you'll see that with one of the later designs I did. Okay, so I have the top and the bottom fairly well saturated. At this point, you can kind of peek down in there if you want to see how much white you have. I can still see little tiny bits. I'm not going to try and touch that up because even in my camo, I like to have just a little bit of white specks. So I think I'm going to leave that just as it is. The one thing I'm going to do is add a coat of black over top of the whole thing. So for this, I am just wanting to apply just a light coat. I'm not doing it completely solid, so I'm just going to kind of do a zigzag back and forth, and I'm going to leave some of the rest of the colors popping through. So, and I like to put a rag down just because whenever you have lots of dye going on, especially when you're layering colors, you get excess coming out, and I'd rather have it soak up into a rag than to puddle underneath. Some people will dye on a rack so that they can have the dye drip through. That's another good way of doing it. Just a matter of finding whatever works best for you. So I'm just going to go over this just one time, and I'm not trying to fill it in completely solid. I'm just going to do kind of a zigzag back and forth, and I'll probably do it both ways, but just one quick coat. Alright, and I usually will let that soak in for just a little bit, and then I'm going to put a rag over top, flip it over, and do the same thing on the bottom side, and then I'm going to batch this for 48 hours, and then I'll do a reveal, and then after that you guys will get the rest of the video. Like I say, the rest of the video is all edited. I just needed this one little bit to go into the video, so hopefully I'll have this up. Well, you guys see it right now. It's up. Alright, hello, welcome to Hippie Christmas. So as you can see, this here has already been opened up. I almost forgot to film this part. I didn't film the opening, but I did scrunch it back up so you guys could kind of see what I did here, or see the results. So let's open this all the way up here. Alright, so yeah, we got some nice color going on in there. And of course, since I did the centering by folding in half, tucking one sleeve in the other, I got some nice symmetry going on. This here's the center of the t-shirt here. So we got some nice colors going on back and forth both ways. Anyways, let's get this washed and inserted into the video so you guys, well, you're currently watching the video, so I must have succeeded. Have a good day. Goodbye. Okay, now this one here I've done the same centering where I've tucked one sleeve in the other. So I have the front and the back separate here. And I'm going to scrunch this one up the same where I'm kind of precise going up the t-shirt. But this one here I'm going to do, you've seen those Rorschach images where it's an ink blot, you open it up and you have the symmetry. Well, that's what we're going to do on a t-shirt, is a Rorschach type image. So for me, the way I like to do it, this is my personal preference. If you have other ways you can explore, and I'm sure there's probably lots of people that have done stuff like this, but I like to fold these ones up more precise, where I'm kind of just condensing the whole t-shirt in its fashion. So I'm just going to kind of slowly scrunch up the bottom here and just create as many of these little creases as I can. And then I'm going to tie this off so everything is kind of in place in the same shape of the t-shirt. Okay, and then the other thing with the Rorschach design is I like to make sure that I keep track of where the front of the t-shirt is. That's why I like to kind of scrunch everything up nice and even. And then I know that the side with the tag here, I mean it's closer over on this side. This here is the front of the t-shirt. This is the back with the sleeves. So let's get some gloves and we'll put some color on this one too. Okay, now it's time to dye the Rorschach. So this one, I have made sure that I have my front and back edges right here. So whenever you want a symmetrical thing, if you want the ink blot part to touch, you need to make sure that you put the black part down here in the center. If you put just a black dot here, what that's going to do when you open it up, you're going to have a black dot on either side. But anywhere that you put the black right here along this edge is going to be open, is going to open up. So what I'm going to do is put my black on the same on the top and the bottom. So here I connected it right down to the center front of the t-shirt, and I'm putting just a little bit of a wing up there, and I'm going to do that same design on the back side. So I can kind of see the dye poking through here. That's why it's easier, I think easiest to do this, the black part all at once, so you can kind of flip back and forth and see that you have your image the same. So I can see that's pretty close to the same on there. And I'm going to put a little bit more down the center here. And then I'm going to do from the bottom, I'm going to come up. And you can do this in any fashion you want. I'm going to connect them right there. The main thing is just for the Rorschach design, let me zoom back out a little bit, is just doing that same design on the front and the back. So as I flip this over, dye that middle part, and then I'm going to come down, let's see, down here, and I went down that way and back this way. So I got that pretty close to the same on the front and the back, so that when that opens up, that's going to give me kind of a mirror image or a Rorschach ink blot. And now the rest of the tee, you can dye that in whatever colors you want. I'm going to dye mine in turquoise. So my small bottle is empty. I'm just going to use my big bottle here. So I'm just going to dye this the same now on the top and the bottom. And that'll give me the Rorschach ink blot from a Scrunch Design. But that's one thing I like about folding the t-shirt in half. You don't have to necessarily do the ink blot like this, but you do get that nice symmetry if you fold the t-shirt in half and then dye it in various colors. And the last one we're going to do is a random rainbow, where we're going to have rainbow colors, not exactly in a Rorschach pattern, but they are going to be in a symmetrical design because I folded it in half. So by dyeing the t-shirt the same on the top and the bottom, it's giving me that same patterning on the top and the bottom. So I'll have that nice even side to side once I open it all the way up. Okay, and then the other thing that I want to do is just add just a little bit of extra detail out here. So I have some darker blue here. It says Royal on there. It might be Bluebird, I'm not sure. But anyways, it should be darker than the turquoise. So I'm not going to get in near the black. I don't want to interfere with that, but I'm just going to put just a little bit around on these turquoise spots, probably within a finger's width of my black design here. And that'll just give me a little bit of texture in the rest of the t-shirt. So now I'm going to let that batch. Let's zoom in so you can see what I did there. So yeah, I just added some darker blue to this turquoise out here, but I made sure to leave this nice turquoise outline around my Rorschach there because I want to have that black really pop out against the blue. And sometimes the darker blue or the darker purple, if you get that too close to the black, it can kind of hinder the overall effect. The lighter blue is going to pop against that black. Anyways, I'm going to batch this for 48 hours and you'll see the results in about 2 seconds. Okay, it's time to open up the Rorschach test. One of the things that dawned on me as I was putting this away to batch is that in the past when I've done this type of a design, I usually, with the shirt laying open flat, I will draw on it a little bit so I have a general idea of where I want to put my dyes. This time I just kind of went for it, so let's go ahead and see what we came up with on this Rorschach design. Alrighty, and of course I tucked one sleeve into the other, so let's open that all the way up. And there's my Rorschach test. Let's see, I don't know what I see in that one. We'll have to look at that later and see what shows up. Anyway. Okay, there are endless possibilities for doing the scrunch just by changing a little bit of how you fold it, a little bit of how you dye it. I've got 5 of them done so far, and I'm going to go ahead and do one more demo. This one here is going to be kind of a random rainbow scrunch. So I'll be dyeing the top and the bottom differently. So this one here, I have centered it once again so that I have the top and the bottom separate from each other. If you're dyeing the top and the bottom same, it's fine to just fold it in half. But if you're going to put different colors in different places, top and the bottom, my best recommendation for getting a nice even side-to-side saturation is to separate the front from the back. So let's just go ahead and dive in. We're just going to randomly scrunch this one up. Okay, time to put some gloves on and splash some dye on that. I'll be right back. Okay, here we go for the last one. This is the random rainbow scrunch. This one here I just kind of scrunched, I folded it in half, centered it so the back and the front are separate from each other. And then as I scrunched it, I didn't try to just compress the whole thing, so I got the bottom of the t-shirt up here next to the top of the t-shirt. So I'm going to put my colors on in lines, rainbow lines, in a similar fashion that I would do a DNA on a pleated design. So I'm going to use fire red, deep orange, lemon yellow, emerald green, turquoise, and plum. These are all older colors. Like I say, they've all been stored in my fridge, so I'm not sure just how bright they're going to be, but this is going to be one way to test that out. And you could do this here, just kind of mix them up like I had done on the camo one with the black, green, and tan. So you could mix all your rainbow colors up like that, but you just take a chance more of having your orange and your purple or your green or something mix in ways that you don't want. So this is just one way. If you, like I say, if you scrunch it up where everything is just kind of mixed together, and then you could put your lines on, and you're still going to get kind of a random rainbow effect, but you're not going to have the colors mixing in the ways that you don't want. So I'm going to put them on this way, and then I'm going to, on the bottom, I'm going to just rotate my colors one space, and then add the colors on the bottom. Same way, like I say, I would do a DNA on a pleated design. Okay, now what I'm going to do is shift. So last time I started with my red here at the edge. This time I'm going to start with orange. So all of my colors are just shifting one space over. And like I say, one of the things you can do is use a cuticle pusher to kind of just peek down in there. Just make sure that as you are peeking in different places that you wipe the dye off your hands, because that's where a lot of dye contamination can come from, is from your hands or from your tools. So make sure you wipe both of those off before you venture into other areas. Okay, that's looking good. So I'm going to set this aside to batch. One of the other things I've done at this point is I will take some of my black and use a foam brush and just lightly paint a coating of dye over top, flip it over, do the same thing on the other side if you want to add just a little bit of black. But this one here, I want you to see what the DNA dyeing style here, where I shifted my colors, what that's going to do for the rainbow patterning. So we're just going to let this batch like this for 48 hours, and you'll see the results in about 2 seconds. Thank you for watching. Okay, we're to the last one on the scrunches. So this is the random rainbow scrunch. Alrighty, let's open it all the way up. Yeah, some nice patterning on that one. Alrighty.